So, hi everyone, and welcome to another Sunday Zoom meeting and another podcast episode. If you're listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube, you can find out more about the podcast, about the online Facebook community, about how to get involved with our meetings here, and about paid private mentoring with myself, if that's something that interests you. All that on the website, which is www.acimwithkeith.com. Okay, so today I had something quite informal in mind because during the week when I thought about what we might discuss here today, um, I didn't really get a strong sense of something to focus on. I wanted it to be something more spontaneous and something more casual. And I didn't even pick out any course quotes before I went online. So I'm not going to do any Bible bashing or Course in Miracles bashing today. I may dig in for some quotes if questions demand. Um, so I wanted just to have a conversation today, and it's there is still this idea that the way we've been discussing A Course in Miracles, there's this persistent idea that this is something that is all right for Keith, who's on a higher rung of the ladder, and it's not for the rest of us because we all still think we're bodies and we all still think we're separate selves, and we should do it differently. Um, so there is this persistent idea in some quarters. Now, Keith is not an enlightened guru. Keith is not incapable of getting upset. Okay, this body mind is fully capable of that. And the only difference is that I always do something about it, which is I go back to the Holy Spirit in my mind so it can be undone. And that's it. No enlightened guru, no living in the real world, no at the level of Jesus. That's not the case. We have been discussing A Course in Miracles is so simple. It is so simple, the process. You you look at your ego with no judgment. You watch what your mind is doing with no judgment until you can identify as what's looking and not what's being looked at. And what you are that
Keith,
looks. Yes, George?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but okay, if I look at George getting all upset at one of his family members, um, I can watch George being upset. But what happens when I get that idea that I'm such a spoiled brat to be mad at my mother, or I'm such a ungrateful child to be mad at poor poor old mom? That that's a pseudo non-judgment of my ego being upset. I mean, how do I just look at George being angry and upset without judgment? I mean, how do I find that non-judgmental spot? It seems like in the back of my mind there's still a little bit of me thinking, God, I'm an awful person. I'm an awful son or whatever. What do I do about that?
Yeah. So would that be looking at your ego without judgment?
Yeah, I'm saying that that's not really without judgment.
Exactly.
How do I find this non-judgment part?
Yeah.
I've taken
Now, in
us
the
right back to kindergarten, haven't I? I'm
that
sorry.
just no, no, no. That's what I want to do today, George. Thanks a million for the question, and it's important. And just for the record, can everyone else raise your hand virtually rather than shout out, just so we have some order
I'm
for today's
sorry,
meeting?
Keith. I'm sorry.
Not at all. Not at all.
Sorry.
Okay. Um, and so that thought persists with you then, George, that I'm a bad son, I'm a bad person.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does. It's
yeah,
just a little bit in there, even when I'm trying to be non-judgmental. It's
yeah,
almost like the holy ego is trying to pretend it's the Holy Spirit.
yeah, exactly.
But I don't know if that's, yeah.
So that thought that I'm a bad person, which by the way, every ego has, George. So you're not alone. Join the club. Everyone just expresses it differently and has different levels of awareness of it. That thought, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad son. Are you that thought? Or are you the one that's noticing the thought coming into your mind?
Yes. Wait, maybe I didn't understand your question. I'm sorry.
So that thought, I'm a bad son. Are you that thought? Is it you?
Oh, no, I'm not. No, not at all. No.
Okay. So you're the one that's aware of the thought.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me about the one that's aware of thoughts.
Well, I think it's just like a formless awareness self.
Okay. Is that your experience right now, or is that an intellectualization? Can you go to the
Well, that's
experience
how
of
I
what?
would describe it.
Good. Okay. And so that is your experience in this moment, then, George?
Yes.
Okay. And in this moment, that story about what I do with my parents and what I do in work and what I do in situations,
Oh,
is that
yeah, it's
any?
a thought. It's
Okay.
just a thought.
Okay. And is it anything other than a story in this moment? Is that anything other than a story? Is it here now?
No, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's a story.
It's a
That's it.
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh, and
you,
so the part of me that thinks that maybe I'm even that other part that I was worried about, that's a thought too.
hmm,
Oh, I get it. It's so simple in a way. Right this moment, I really get that.
yeah. So, so is any of that or anything other than a story in the present moment?
No, I see it's one story on top of another on top of another. I can see that.
Yeah. Tell me about the one that sees it.
It's just like a field or
Yeah.
like Rupert Spira calls it a the screen. I can see
Well,
that.
go to your experience. Is it your experience then that you are the body or that the body is appearing in the field of awareness that you are? Is that your experience?
Yes. It's appearing in the field of awareness.
Yeah. And this awareness, does it have any limitation or boundary?
No, it just is.
Can you find an outer edge to it?
Not yet.
No.
No,
And if the body was to die right now, would it have any effect on the awareness that you are in this moment?
I guess not. It,
Don't guess.
I,
Go to your experience. The awareness that you are in this moment, would it be affected by the body's death?
well, I'm hoping not, but
No, but go to your experience of the awareness that you are in this moment and tell me the body in the field of awareness that you are, if it died, would it have any effect on awareness?
I guess it wouldn't. I just, that part of me just is.
Yeah. So you're not a body, you're free, still as God created you. And then you, this awareness that you are in the Holy Spirit, um, can you find the one? Because we've been talking about a story about someone who's practicing the course and they've been thinking they're a bad son and thinking they're a bad person. And there's been situations in work and they've had some anxiety. And can you, awareness in this moment, can you find the one that that story is about?
Well, it's about George.
Yeah. And can
Same
you
with
tell
the
me, tell me, is George anything other than a story? Is George here in this moment, or is it just your awareness?
um no, I can see what you're pointing towards.
But go to your
I'm an
experience.
I well, to be fully honest, when I'm put on the spot with all the people listening, it kind of blows my circuits and I can't really
Blowing your circuit's a
focus.
really
But
good thing because awareness doesn't have circuits.
oh yeah, I can see George with blown circuits. Yeah, I see that.
Okay.
I see I see
And
the story of George. Yes,
yeah.
I
And
can see that.
tell me about the awareness that you are. Can this awareness be upset?
No, it just looks at the upset.
And but is that your
Yeah.
experience, George?
Yeah, I can see I can it's like a field
It is. And can you feel
that
yourself as that
watches.
field? Is it your felt sense of being now?
Um no, I don't go that deeply. I can't seem to get that deeply into it. I for like a nanosecond I'll feel that and
That's
then
good. It's brilliant. Yeah, great. And can you go to that feeling now? Can you go to that feeling now?
it's hard when I'm
No, 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 no. It's not. That thought that it's hard, is that you? Or are you the one
oh
that's
yeah,
aware
that's
of
a
that
thought
thought?
too. Yeah,
Are
right.
you the one that's
Okay.
aware of that
I
thought?
get it.
Yeah, but
Yes.
do it.
Yes.
Do it.
Okay.
Um, so are you that thought?
No. No, I'm
No,
not.
no. Um, and this you, the one that's aware of thoughts, can it be upset?
No.
Exactly. And so the only problem you ever have is mistaken identity. That's how simple the course is. This
Boy, I
one.
bet if you had $1 for every time you have to say that to us, you'd be a billionaire.
And can you go back to that experience now, George? Can you go back to being the
Yeah, I
space in the room?
can.
Yeah. Do you think that you can fall back into
Yes.
that identity anytime you want?
If I have the presence of mind, yes.
Yeah. And what takes you back there
If
every
I
single time is that you look at what your mind is doing, your ego, and you don't judge it
just look and judge
without
not.
judgment. Yeah.
You're right.
And you feel what you are in the Holy Spirit. This, here now, in this moment, what you are, which isn't a story. George is just a story. Only the now is real. And in this moment, there is no separate self. There is just you, this awareness, aware of thoughts and feelings and stories and completely unaffected by them. Can you feel that?
Sometimes I can.
No, no, now, because sometimes it's bringing you out of the present moment. In this moment, can you feel how in the Holy Spirit, like this, you're untouched by the thoughts, feelings, and emotions? That you can be the eye of the storm.
Well, I'm going to practice it. Right this moment, it's kind of hard for me.
Okay.
I'm
And George, that thought that it's hard for me, is that you, or are you the one that's aware of that thought happening?
No, I'm aware of that thought. Yeah.
You see, can you see how we lose ourselves in the ego's thoughts, but we don't have
Yes.
to? Can you see how you can bring yourself
Oh, yeah,
back from
right.
getting lost in thoughts?
Yes, I can.
Okay, maybe I won't push you too much this week, George.
Thank you, Keith. I really appreciate you a lot.
Yeah, and listen,
That's very helpful.
George is just a story made up out of stories of the past. But you're not a story.
Right.
You, here now in this moment, you're not a story. You cannot be defined by a story. This
Yeah, I can
piece
see that.
that you are. Okay. That's
Thank you so much, Keith.
that's your identity in the Holy Spirit. And that's our shared identity. There's only one Holy Spirit. There's only one right mind. So that present moment awareness, this felt sense of beingness, that's our shared identity. It's the truth of everything and everyone.
Wow.
And it's the end of separateness. And we can train ourselves with forgiveness to have this be our felt sense of being, no matter what's going on in the mind or the world or the body. This, the truth of everything and everyone. This peace here now in this moment. And again, the course is so simple. All you have is a mistaken identity problem. You think you're a self that doesn't exist, that's made out of stories, because the truth is there's just the present moment. And in this present moment, there's no separate self there to be upset about anything. There's just our shared identity. And that's what a miracle is. You return back to what you are in the Holy Spirit. And suffering can't stand because there's no separate self there to suffer. You have to make it up out of stories, but none of them are here now in this moment. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Brilliant. Good. Thanks, George.
Thank you, Keith. Thank
Pleasure.
you very much.
Eli, do we have anything to address in the chat box? I see Kirsten has her hand up.
Actually, I have my hand up.
Ah, do you? Okay. I wondered, was that an error? Go
As soon as you
ahead.
said at the beginning to put your hands up, I put my hand up
Absolutely.
right away. And we do have things in the chat, but hands came up first. So anyway,
Okay.
I'll get started here. This actually is from Myra Fiddleman, who couldn't make it here today. So she sent me a Facebook message to ask if I would ask her question. So I'll read it out to you. Oh, sorry. In answer to a question on Facebook page, Keith wrote that the dream can only be seen from the perspective of a dream figure. Can you elaborate more on this? Because to experience what needs to be healed on the worldly level, Jesus asked me not to deny what I see in form, but to learn to look beyond form and to look with the Holy Spirit through the vision through to look with the Holy Spirit through the vision of Christ. So, what is it that is seeing? What is it that is being aware of the dream?
Okay. A Course in Miracles, it's beyond the curriculum of A Course in Miracles to awaken from the dream. That is not what A Course in Miracles is about. That is the very last step on the ladder when consciousness is undone. And Jesus tells us that God himself takes that last step to undo consciousness. Now, he's speaking mythologically because God doesn't take steps and doesn't know about the separation and won't be taking any steps around it. It's a it's a it's a metaphor, and it's a way of saying to you that the undoing of consciousness isn't any of your concern. It happens automatically at the very top of the ladder. When you see the face of Christ and all your brothers, you remember God, and then that's all that's left. God, all that ever was. Because consciousness is just a dream. But that's not our focus in A Course in Miracles. The focus of A Course in Miracles is the happy dream. It's not waking from the dream. Again, that is an outcome of the happy dream, and it will take care of itself. Our job is having a happy dream. And so based on that, it is not our job to make the world disappear or to make dream figures disappear. As Jesus says in the Course, awareness of dreaming is the real function of God's teachers. Now, he did not say awakening from the dream is the real function of God's teachers. He said awareness of dreaming is the real function of God's teachers. They watch the dream figures come and go, shift and change, suffer and die, and they're not deceived by what they see. Unity alone is not a thing of dreams. And it is this God's teachers acknowledge behind the dream, beyond all seeming, and yet surely theirs. And so we have a split mind, but the Holy Spirit is one. So there's like 8 billion wrong minds. There's 8 billion apparently separate selves. There is only one right mind. And so our task in A Course in Miracles is bringing the wrong mind to the right mind, bringing the darkness to the light, bringing the error to the truth. That's all our job is. And really, this manifests as a kind of dual vision or dual awareness, in the sense that, again, we're not asked to disappear the world or change the world or make people disappear or stop seeing bodies or stop seeing dream figures. But we are being trained to see the one sun behind all of it. But to go back to the question in terms of only the dream figure can see the dream. I'll put it this way. If you go to the cinema and you're watching a movie, and on the movie is 10,000 people in a football stadium, there is only 10,000 people from the point of view of one of those people in the picture. Otherwise, it's just one thing. It's just one movie. There are not 10,000 people up there. The screen is just appearing as 10,000 people, but there are no people. There is only 10,000 people from the point, if you jump into the screen, if you jump into the movie and you pretend you're one of the bodies in the movie, and then you can go, because I think I'm real as a body, now I see 10,000 bodies. But there's just the screen. The screen never becomes 10,000 people. It's just appearing as 10,000 people. Okay, so God has one son. Okay, now within consciousness, you know, the Holy Spirit is the representation of God's one son, because there's just one Holy Spirit. And so another analogy, if Eli, I'll treat it like your question, Eli. If Eli has a dream tonight that she is walking down the streets of the lost city of Atlantis and seeing crystals and other people and water all around, then could you mute Ryan, Eli, if you're there? Because I have an echo. Or Brian, if you can mute yourself.
Yeah,
Brian's muted
yeah,
himself.
I've got it. Yeah, I've got it.
Himself. Okay. Sometimes Zoom does funny things. Ah, that's fixed itself. Okay. Can you guys hear the echo? Okay. That's annoying.
Yes, everybody needs to mute themselves, I think.
I'm going to mute all just again, just in case. But sometimes Zoom does this messing where it okay, that seems good. Sometimes Zoom just does things by itself randomly. I think we're good. Okay, so what I was going to say was, Eli, if Eli has a dream tonight that she's walking in the lost city of Atlantis, surrounded by Atlantean people and Atlantean buildings and water all around, then Eli's not there. She's safely in her bed, and Eli can't walk down the streets of Atlantis because there's no Atlantis. If it ever existed, it's destroyed and undiscovered, and we don't know what it looked like. And so Eli can't do that. And so ultimately, that dream is happening in the mind of Eli. It is known only by the mind of Eli, and it is made out of the mind of Eli. Now, in the same way, consciousness, the apparently separate Son of God, the entire world is happening in consciousness, known only by one consciousness and made out of consciousness. And that's the Holy Spirit's perspective, where everything is one. As Jesus says, Christ's vision is one law. Does not look upon a body and mistake it for the Son whom God created. It beholds a light beyond the body, an idea beyond what can be touched, beyond fearful thoughts of sin and fear, etc. It sees a light, which is the truth of everything, and there's no separateness. I'm paraphrasing rather than digging into the quote. And that's what we're learning to do. In our forgiveness process, we look at our ego without judgment and we realize I'm not the ego. There is no ego. I am what's here now in this moment, which is just awareness. It's just this sense of being, this felt sense of being. And that's the truth of everyone. That's the Holy Spirit. That's the right mind, the one right mind. It doesn't matter that your wrong mind is running around the place. It's not you. No matter what your wrong mind is doing, you can have this felt sense of beingness, this sense of peace. And forgiveness will take you there. In the beginning, it feels like a peace in the back of your mind, which comes from forgiveness. But eventually you realize you are the peace and you're not the person. There's no person. It's just a story that's not here in this present moment. And so that's where the Course is taking us, is that our eyes are always going to show us the movie. But ultimately, there's just one thing. There's just one movie. All of it is the consciousness that you are. The whole thing is made out of what you are, happening in what you are, known by what you are. It's just one thing. And that's the collapse of separateness. That's Christ's vision. That's the holy instant, where there's no separation. That's joining with your brother. But you first have to join with the Holy Spirit. You have to let go of the ego's hand. You have to stop identifying with your thoughts and be the one that sees the thoughts without judgment. And that one is the only one. It's the dreamer of the dream. As Jesus says, all the fear was kept in place because he thought he was the figure in the dream instead of the author of the dream. There's just one author of the dream. Just like if Eli has a dream tonight and dreams she's in the lost city of Atlantis. The whole dream is made out of Eli's mind, known by Eli's mind, and happening in that mind. In the same way, that's what the world is. That's the collapse of separateness. And that's what Christ's vision shows us. But that doesn't mean our eyes are going to see anything different than it does right now. The eyes are always going to report separateness. But we can have a different interpretation of what the eyes see. You know, as Jesus says, the ego always speaks first. So the eyes are going to see what they see. And the ego is going to go, it's a world. It's a multiplicity of people. It's the 10,000 things. But we can switch over to the Holy Spirit and see, no, it's one thing. All I have to do is step out of the false identity as a body, a physical and psychological body, and feel what I am in the Holy Spirit. That is not a thought. That is not a feeling. That is not a sensation. That's aware of all that, but isn't that. And what I am, everything is. God's one holy, innocent Son. God has but one Son. And everything else is just a story. And so the dream, you know, ultimately, this one consciousness has to localize itself as a dream figure from whose point of view consciousness, the activity of consciousness, appears as the world and bodies. And so it's only from that perspective that consciousness looks like a world. But as Jesus says, there is no world. That's the central message this course attempts to teach. Again, we're not trying to vanish it or disappearing it. We want to see the truth of it. And that is that, like the movie screen, there's not really 10,000 people on the movie screen. There's just one screen. In the same way with the world, there's not really gazillions of people and things. There is just one Son of God, only appearing as the world. And so the world is an illusion. Doesn't mean it has no reality whatsoever. What we want to do is look beyond the darkness to the light. We want to look beyond the error to the truth of unity, the truth of oneness, that we share our being, that all the apparent dream figures are the one being, God's one Son. Hope that makes sense. If anyone wants to shout more questions on that, do. I know that's a tricky one to get your head around from the point of view of thinking you are the figure in the dream, but you're not. You are the author of the entire dream. And you are experiencing your dream from the point of view of one of the figures in your dream. And the Course is saying your problem is you think you are that figure, but you're not. You are God's one holy, innocent Son, localizing itself as 8 billion people and viewing itself and its own activity from the point of view of 8 billion dream figures. But there's just one author of the dream. You are that. And that's what you feel yourself as in this present moment in the Holy Spirit. That's what it means to be above the battleground with Jesus. Above the battleground with Jesus, you say, this is all my dream. And it's harmless. Because nothing, you know, he watches the dream figures come and go, shift and change, suffer and die. It's all God's one Son, you, what you are here now in this moment. Nothing is being born, nothing is suffering, nothing is dying. That's just a story. Anyway, if anyone wants to ask more questions on that, you can. Are you there, Eli?
I am.
Very
we can go to Jenny and then Kirsten, but after Kirsten, there's some in the chat that we'd like to take care of.
Super.
So
Super.
Jenny, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hi, Jenny.
I'll set the stage of what I want to ask. Even though everything that just went before there, I almost feel like I just want to sit here and bask in the big field of awareness right now. But this is important because it keeps coming up for me. So I will try and get back to that. I have 4 grown children, and my 2 eldest. Well, I'll just say my eldest son invited me over. He does this periodically where I stay a week and look after the grandchildren for them. So here I am at his place. I'm looking after the kids. It's a lot of work, but it's also just so much joy and so easy to be the one being in these little bodies and me, and it's just wonderful. But then my son has this thing where he's really concerned about me because he's decided that I'm mentally declining fast because I'm on Facebook. He has a whole list. I'm on Facebook too much. I'm getting all my news from Facebook. Therefore, I don't have anything to talk about. I don't hold conversations. My interest in music is boring because I do listen to chants or sweet, happy music. So anyway, and he said, the last time we talked, he also remembers everything that I said wrong. And so he brings it up again, that I have no regrets, that he says that's, that's craziness. And when he did it this time, I just felt this, oh, goody. Here's my fear and my pain and my regret all coming up that I'm dealing with. So I take a breath and I'm listening, but I'm also feeling this stuff rising and being like, okay, this is some blocks to love's presence coming up. That's my opportunity to work with. And then I'm listening. So I say things like, And he's like, there you go again. You just tune out. You can't stand conflict. And you're just going, like, so where does, can you speak on spiritual bypassing, which I think, okay, I get that. Like, I want to be present for what's, seemingly happening for this person, triggering some of my stuff, but I also want to work on this stuff in the way you're describing, which is welcoming the pain and the fear and the shame as he's talking to me, what it's bringing up for me. But I can't, at that point, I can't talk. I'm just like feeling all this stuff and at some time, and then sometimes I get a glimpse of the presence of that we're all this one being, and then I get an amused look on my face, which makes it even worse because then he goes, oh, there you got the stupid smile on your face, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll try and change that, because if he knew, like if I described to him what I was actually doing, he would really think I was insane. Like, oh, well, I'm working on the blocks to love's presence being removed so that I can be, the oneness that we all are. And, then, so if you could speak to that.
In the beginning, when you start working with forgiveness and beginning to get that felt sense of being in the Holy Spirit, the one who looks and isn't what's looked at, in the beginning it feels like it's one or the other. It's almost like either I am the thinker and the freaker out, or I am the beingness in the background. And that's normal. Everyone gets it that way in the beginning. But as you practice this, that sense of being in the Holy Spirit, that changelessness in you, becomes something that can be there. Like, for example, I have that felt sense of beingness now, and I'm seeing it as the truth of you, but I'm still having a conversation. So it doesn't in any way distract me. It does mean I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. But that's helpful. And so that's just something that will come with time. So if it feels a little bit like you can't hold your felt sense of being whilst at the same time engaging with someone, again, that's normal in the beginning, but it will get easier to do. And so, you know, for now, it's for you to make a decision then on whether you want to continue to do it this way, or whether you would think maybe about having the conversation first and then dealing with whatever emotions have come up. You've got to make a decision on what's right for you in that situation. But I do promise you there will come a point where it doesn't matter what you're having a conversation about, or it doesn't matter even what emotions or feelings or thoughts are coming up, but you can hold your felt sense of being in the Holy Spirit. And so you can be that which is noticing. Does that make sense, Jenny?
Yeah, that sounds very hopeful that there'll be a point where I don't, but
and that's just practice, because just keep practicing all throughout the day. Every time you realize you're unconscious and you don't know the felt sense of being, which is the being we all share, the source of all the dream characters, that just notice when you're unconscious to that and go back to it and just do that the whole day. And eventually it will just become, it will be there anyway. So it will get easier. Were you going to ask something else?
Well, it was just the piece about spiritual bypassing. Like, at what point do I think, well, okay, maybe he's right. I got to take these other steps to be more acceptable to him as a human being, where I'm going, no, I'm doing this path, which at some point, like you said, things will be undone that need to be undone.
Yeah. Ultimately, your forgiveness practice is that you can allow him to be exactly what he is without needing him to be different. Because what does it have to do with the felt sense of beingness and the Holy Spirit?
Okay, that's the piece. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I wanted him to be different.
Yeah, so he can be however he needs to be right now without me calling him wrong.
Yeah.
But ultimately what we want to get to, and it's a process, is that you hold your own sense of beingness, and then you also see that as the truth of the person that you're having the conversation with. So now there's the dream, but there's the reality of the one consciousness. And that's Christ's vision. So there's still the dream, and there's the conversations and the stories, but the screen is radiant behind all the scenes. That felt sense of being, which is the truth of us all. Does that make sense?
Always.
Yeah, and again, that's not something you have to do straight away, but that's where this goes, and you'll be able to do it that way. Yeah.
Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, Jenny. Where should we go next, Eli?
I'm afraid Eli has left the building.
Eli has left the building. Kirsten, I think your hand was next. You go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I just have I'm stuck a little bit, even though when I'm listening to you and everybody talk, I'm sure I could just, apply this, but I'm bringing this up only because so anyway, whatever. So this has to do with my daughter. And I've said to you before, Keith, I've talked to you about her before, but anyway, the place where I'm super duper stuck is with her fears of, she's 11, she just turned 11, and she's so preoccupied with death and loss. And she, and I have so much trouble with this, which is why I'm struggling, and she never ever wants to be alone. And she still sleeps in our room for 11 years, and believe me, we've tried everything and all of that, but it's so painful these feelings that come up when she's feeling such loss, and the things that she thinks about. I mean, so I am stuck because even when I tell myself to see the light of Christ in her and to just hold that space, I guess I'm not doing that. That must be what's going on with me, because
Okay.
I'm so
Okay. Yes. See, the mistake there is you, Kirsten, are trying to see the light of Christ in her. You, the ego, the imaginary separate self, are trying to see the Holy Spirit in your daughter.
Okay.
That won't work. And this brings us to the crucial understanding in the course. You must look at the error first in order to choose against it. So we've been talking about a story about a body with a daughter, and the daughter has some issues and problems, and this adult body gets all upset about it. And tell me, in this present moment, Kirsten, is that anything other than a story? In this moment.
Right. No, it's a story.
Is it here now as anything other than a story?
No.
No. And tell me about you that's here now in this moment.
Yep. So I feel awareness.
No. Don't tell me what you feel. Tell me about the one who feels. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about the one who's aware of thoughts and feelings and stories.
Well, the awareness is,
go to what you are.
I don't have feelings if I'm in that place. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Tell me about your experience of what you are in this moment, here and now. Tell me about the self you are. Tell me what your experience is. Tell me about yourself.
I feel like...
Don't tell me what you feel. Tell me about the one who feels. Tell me about the one who's aware of the feeling.
The part of me that's aware is not upset.
Well, tell me about what you are, not about parts of you. Tell me about the one who's aware of thoughts coming and going, stories coming and going, feelings coming and going. Tell me about the you that's not coming and going.
I don't need anything. Yeah, I don't need anything.
Mm-hmm. And are you that story, or are you the awareness of that story?
The awareness, definitely.
And are you the body, or are you the awareness of the body?
Yeah, the awareness.
And this awareness that you are, this present moment awareness in the Holy Spirit, is there any sense of limitation or boundary? Is there any outer edge to it?
No.
Are there any problems?
No.
And can you find the one that story was about in this moment? Can you, awareness, find the one that story is about? Can you find the ego?
In that very place, no.
So is that story about you?
No.
No. Is it about your daughter?
No.
No, because she's not an ego either. In this moment, in the Holy Spirit, this awareness that you are is the truth of your daughter also. And here's our conundrum in the course. What Jesus says is, what you first of all do is you attack the Christ in yourself to identify as an ego, which is a self made out of stories that is never in the present moment, and it's always the present moment. You attack the Christ in you to identify as an illusion of yourself, and then you attack Christ a second time to see him as another illusion of himself, an ego that's broken. And so when you're seeing the broken ego in your daughter, you can't do that. You can't attack the Christ in her like that unless you first attack the Christ in yourself. You have left the Holy Spirit. You've left Jesus in the cinema. And you've jumped into the movie and went, I am one of the 10,000 people in the stadium, and there's another person in the stadium.
Yeah.
So that's why Jesus says we only ever accept the atonement for ourselves. The sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself. There's no separateness. There's no such thing as separate selves. There is this one beingness that we all share, this felt sense of being. And healing is when you, knowing that of yourself, know it as the truth of everyone else. And then, with that knowing, love will express itself through you in a form that people are ready to accept without fear. So this doesn't mean that you would become indifferent to your daughter's suffering. It does mean that you start not believing it. It does mean that you start to disagree with her nightmares about herself and see the Christ in her. But you must do it in yourself first.
But see, that's the thing, because, and I know this is why I'm talking out loud, because I it's hard to speak, but anyway, when you said, I mean, that's where that would be a huge step for me. Just like when you said in the group, like your mom was having some health and issues, and you were able to stand in the light of Christ while watching whatever was happening, right? I mean, I would have to do the same thing in the face of my daughter's fears of death.
I mean, yes, because, yeah, so if anyone hasn't seen the post, yeah, my mom had some health scares and ER situations. And what I was saying in the post was that it never occurred to me to go praying for a body's recovery or its extension in the dream. Rather, when concern presented itself, I realized I had left the Holy Spirit. I wasn't in the present moment. I wasn't what's here now. I was identified as a story, an illusion of myself, a separate self that doesn't exist. And because of that, I was worried about another separate self. And so I would use the miracle to return to what I am here now in this moment in the Holy Spirit, which is not a body or a personality. And then I saw the truth of my mum, who's not a body or a personality, who wasn't born and won't die, who cannot be sick. And I see that as the truth of her. And that's what healing is.
Mm-hmm. And for me, that example it feels the same. To me, it feels that intense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same thing. Now, that doesn't mean I wouldn't take care at the level of form, at the level of the dream. That doesn't mean I would become indifferent to my mother's needs. I just wouldn't be making them real. Mm-hmm. I often think about it like this, in the sense that when you know what you are and you see that as the truth of your brother, then it's a little bit like whatever problems they think they have, or they think they're sick because they think they're a body, or whatever else is going on. It's a little bit like the way that you help them is like when your child has a fear of monsters and you go into the room and you say, okay, I know you think you saw a monster, so let's check the room for you. Let's open the wardrobe. See, no monsters. Let's look under the bed. See, no monsters. Let's get this magic teddy bear. This magic teddy bear was blessed by Santi last year, and it dispels monsters. And let's put this in the room, and that's going to keep the monsters out. So that's how you would pacify your child. Mm-hmm. That's what we need to think about in terms of the dream. So again, we go back to what Jesus says. They watch the dream figures come and go, shift and change, suffer and die. They're not deceived by what they see. They see the one screen appearing as the many. So we're seeing the light of Christ in everyone, like in its totality, not part of Christ. Each single part is the entirety of Christ. And when you do that, watch how your thoughts will soften. Watch how your fear will soften. Watch how your words will be more inspired and guided. And watch how contagious the peace you've chosen for yourself is for the other person. See, when we're identified as an ego, and then there's this other ego that's all upset, what we do is we agree with them and go, my God, how do you cope with that? Now, even if we never said it out loud, this is an energy thing. We are agreeing with their nightmare of themselves. And that's the golden rule of A Course in Miracles. You don't make the error real and then set out to fix it. That's the golden rule of A Course in Miracles. And so Jesus is saying, do not share your brother's dream of himself. Refuse to confirm his dream to him, and you weaken it. And so it's one of the most powerful things, to be around someone who, no matter what's going on, sees only the strength and ability and goodness in you. That is a very powerful thing, to be around someone like that. There have been very inspired teachers and, school kids that would have had a teacher like that or a coach like that. And the effect of being around someone like that stays with them their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
They may have only had that teacher for a year, but they'll still be talking about it when they're 80 years old. The power of being around someone who only believes in the light in you, the ability, the strength. And that's how we help our loved ones, by seeing the truth of them. We're not trying to put the strength in them. It's already there.
Yeah.
Everything else is just their dreams of themselves and our dreams of them. But the strength is the truth. The holiness is the truth. The wholeness is the truth. And so what you want to do is you want to just look at your own story without judging it and feel what you are that's not in the story.
Right.
Feel what you are as this awareness in the Holy Spirit. And now your daughter is the same thing. But you, Kirsten, identified as an illusion of yourself, can't be helpful to someone else identified as an illusion of themselves.
No, and I hear you. And I think, well, so I guess the obsession with death is the thing that I had just gotten sucked into about it. So it would be.
Yeah, but are we ever upset for the reason we think?
No.
So
never.
Who's really upset about death?
Right. Well, I am. I mean, my ego. But I know what to do.
So the problem isn't your daughter's fear of death, it's yours.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. So yeah, right. Exactly.
Okay. And again, I'm never upset for the reason I think. Even you're not afraid of death. Awareness, go to the awareness you are in this moment, okay? The one that can't be defined by stories. Can you be afraid of anything?
No, I can't.
No, you cannot. So when Jesus says, I'm never upset for the reason I think, it's like, well, I think I'm afraid of death, but actually, I can't be afraid of anything. That's why I'm never upset for the reason I think. The only reason I'm ever upset is because I've chosen to identify as an ego.
Right.
Because what I am as awareness can't be upset.
Right.
Present moment awareness in the Holy Spirit cannot be upset. Go to your experience, Kirsten. Do you think there's any possibility? Do you think there's any problems here? Do you think that there's anything to be upset about as awareness?
No.
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 So just keep, that's your holy instant. That's your miracle. You just keep going back to that. You know, we find ourselves thinking there's problems and we go, I'm insane. Let me go back to the Holy Spirit where there's no problems. And let me see that as the truth, shining as the screen behind all the movie characters.
Mm-hmm.
The strength and the wholeness and the love of Christ. The invulnerability. And the more you put your attention on this this self that you are in the Holy Spirit, which is the same one I am, which is the same one everyone on this call is, the more, every time you return to this changeless dwelling place, every time you return to the quiet center, to the stately calm, this self that we are will shine brighter.
Okay.
And in the beginning, it's this peace, it's this stillness, it's this limitlessness. It will shine as joy. It will shine as love. And so each time you find yourself insane, making problems real, go back to here to remember that there's no problem for you or for anyone. And then from that place of knowing there's no problem, watch how easily guided you can be in terms of how to be helpful with your daughter at the level of form. But what's much more important is that at the level of mind, because there's just one mind, at the level of mind, your daughter is already healed. That's where the power is. All the problem is my daughter is broken and she needs to be healed. All that does is reinforce that your daughter is broken. How could she be broken? Instead, in your mind, your daughter can't be broken because you know what you are and you know what your daughter is. And the power in that is enormous.
Oh, thank you, Keith.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem. Did Eli return to us?
I did. Yes, my computer decided to shut down on me, and so I had a good laugh over that.
No problem.
And
what do we do next?
So with that, I lose all the chat that was there. So there were some questions that I thought we would do after Kirsten. So I know, Freddie, you had something in the chat.
Okay, let me have a quick look here. I'll earn my bread here for a change.
You can be co-host, but you can.
Let me have a look and see what we need to look at. Okay. Just looking for questions amidst all the conversation. Yeah, lots of people making comments. Freddie said, I think
I'll use my new computer.
Very good. Freddie says, I think when the body dies, awareness goes with it. There's nowhere for awareness to go. The whole world and all bodies are happening in awareness, known by one awareness, God's one innocent holy Son, and made out of awareness. There's nowhere to go. Now, awareness does eventually go when consciousness is undone and beingness and God is restored. But until then, there's nowhere for awareness to go. Awareness is always here now. There's no movement in awareness. There's no, awareness is not in time. Time is happening in awareness. So awareness is always here now in this present moment, and all bodies are apparently coming and going, and time is coming and going within awareness. So again, consciousness, the dreamer of the dream, is that means the entire dream is made out of the mind of consciousness, known by one consciousness, and happening in consciousness. It's time and space is within consciousness. That's just my 10 cents on that. Freddie, I know you didn't ask a question, but that's just what I'm saying.
Come in on that, Keith.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the problem is that the awareness seems very personal. You know, I experience it through my senses, my sight, my hearing. These are all ways that my awareness is manifest. And I get the feeling that when you say to somebody, when you're talking to somebody, you are eternal, you're actually talking to the ego, I think, as separate bodies. And I think the ego gets the idea that it's going to be eternal. You know, that's what I think is happening with me. Because I don't think awareness is personal, although I experience
No,
it.
and you're quite correct. That there is nothing personal about it, about awareness whatsoever. There's just one awareness.
Yeah.
The awareness that I am is the same one that you are.
Mm.
Okay, so that you're quite correct. Awareness is completely impersonal. Remember, there's only one right mind. There's only one Holy Spirit. It's completely impersonal.
Yeah, every time you say to somebody that you are eternal, it kind of sounds like you're saying to that person that ego, is eternal.
No, the ego is no, because there's no ego there. But the thing is, the I of the ego is the I of the one consciousness.
Yeah.
I think everything else is, you know, the ego is just I am this and I am that and I am the other. But the I of the ego, stripped back of all its identifications, is the I of the one self.
Yeah. I think the ego can easily grab onto that idea.
Yeah, but the ego is just a story. It's not there. There is no actual ego there. There's only ever the one I present in anyone.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So God has only got one son. You know, for now we're dealing with consciousness. We can't end consciousness, so there's still the sense of I, but there's just one I.
Yeah. I think what I need to do is to let go of this idea of it being personal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because there's nothing personal about awareness. Yeah. It's the same for everyone. And that's how we join with our brother. It's the changelessness, you see. Jesus says there's a changelessness in your brother, and it's the same changelessness that's in you. And the only thing that's changeless in us is awareness, or I am. And it doesn't matter what's going on in the movie, that in our mind, I am, this awareness shines constantly. It might be overlooked to identify with a story of what I am, but it's never not there. It's never not there. So we have a split mind, and both minds are always present concurrently, but they are dissociated. So you can only identify with one or the other. It can't be neither, and it can't be both. Yeah.
I think I got a big piece today.
Good.
And that is that there's nothing personal about this appearance at all.
No. No, it's just a story.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a story. And we can have that felt sense of being anytime in the Holy Spirit. And again, the course process of doing that is you must look at the error in order to choose against it. So I look at the story I'm telling myself without judgment, and I identify as what's looking and not what's looked at. Yeah. And what I am, everyone is. It's God's one holy Son appearing as the 10,000 things.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you, Keith.
So what should we do next, Eli?
Well, I'm not sure about any other questions.
Oh, sorry, I forgot I'm supposed to be doing it. Yes, I'm too used to having you as my skivvy.
Yeah, and I'm not co-host again, but you can carry on.
Okay, someone says, okay, Jane asks, how can I know that when I die, I will be aware? Look, at what you do is use the process we've been drilling, we've been talking about, and feel the fact that you're aware now, and that the awareness that you are now is not a body. And see that if the body dies now, this awareness in the Holy Spirit, would be completely unaffected by it, because I'm not in the body. The body is in the field of awareness. That's me. So don't wait until you're dead to discover. Go to your experience in this moment. And notice that you're not in the body. You're not a body. Ask yourself, am I the body or am I aware of the body? And you'll see that you are the awareness of the body, and you'll see that you're not in the body. The body is in the field of awareness. That's you. So we've had a few people go through that. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, I'm just going to watch for question marks. Okay, here sounds like a question. No question mark. Keith, when I experience myself as awareness, I have a distinct sense of energetic electricity, like a tingling. But I feel it very clearly. It is a joy and peace and love. Yeah, that's very common. I would experience it the same way. And Eckhart Tolle talks about that. So it's good. Yeah. Yeah. It just means that you are more aware than you normally do, and are more aware of sensations than you normally would be. It's a good thing. Okay, my question is, I have never heard it spoken of in this way. Is it a feeling? Today I heard you say felt sense. Is that what you mean? Okay. You're not an object. And so you can't go looking for yourself. You have to come back to what it is you are here now in this moment. And so we don't go looking for the peace of the Holy Spirit in our mind. It's not an object. It's an experience. So I say felt sense of being because it's not a thought. It is you who are aware of thoughts, feelings, and stories coming and going, but is not coming and going. And so it is your sense of I that is unchanging. And so, yes, that would be a felt sense of the being of I, stripped of all of its identifications with thoughts and feelings and stories. And that's why I kind of describe it that way. So is it a felt sense of being? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because again, you can't go looking for yourself. You can only be yourself. And when you come into the present moment, this present moment in the Holy Spirit, it is your felt sense of being. It is. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense. God, you're a chatty bunch. I'm trying to triage here. We did have some questions, Eli, didn't we?
I know that I have Rachel's question up, so that if you get to her as you're scrolling down, I think Teresa and Dan and Lisa should be able to ask their questions first before Rochelle.
Yeah, it's a lot of dead air time. Okay, look, I don't think I've come across anything else. If you have a question, anyone, shout it in the chat box again, and Eli will let me know. Let's go to Teresa and Dan.
Oh, hello.
Hello, Teresa.
It's not really a question, thank you, Keith. It's more of a comment, and the comment came when George was speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, I have been listening, and it has been so amazing. You know, I think sometimes, oh, I've really got this, and then I listen to you, and I think, you know, particularly when Jenny and Kirsten, and I could feel myself getting well into the story, and listening to your answer was very helpful. But my comment was that what I've been practicing since listening over the weeks and the months is that when I am noticing my thoughts more and noticing when I drop into a low sense of being, and then I remember what you have been saying all the time, which is, what has this thought got to do with the peace in my mind? And somehow that helps to detach me from uh, the judgment of it. I'm just looking at it without judgment, and it's just like it's wonderful. It's really, it's wonderful, and that helps me to look without judgment. What has this got to do with the peace in my mind? I mean, I recently had some tightness around my neck and causing some, I don't know if it's neuralgia, but some shooting pains in my head. And I thought, oh my goodness, my thoughts started going, what if I'm going to have a stroke? What if I die in bed? What if what about this? What about just madness? Absolutely. And I thought, what has this got to do with the peace in my mind? And what has, and I'm calling this pain, but is it really, really pain? Or is it just a sensation, which I picked up recently, from the conference that time. And I thought, no, it is just a sensation. It's not really pain. I've got all this fear coming up with this pain going on in my head. And I kept saying, this too will pass. This will pass. And it actually has passed. It's gone.
Yeah.
This idea of what has this thought got to do with the peace in my mind just really helps me to. So thank you. That was
perfect. Yeah, that's lovely. And I mean, because the peace in our mind's invulnerable. It's the sense of I, stripped of all its attachments with the stories and the thoughts and the feelings. It's always there. The peace is always in our mind. So really, I think that's very helpful. I know when I started doing the talks at first, so many people found that helpful. That's from Ken. He used to say, what does it have to do with the love and peace of the Holy Spirit in my mind? And nothing. So there's anxiety in my wrong mind, but what does that have to do with the love and peace in my right mind? There's problems with the body, but what does that have to do with me? What does it have to do with my right mind that doesn't have a body? And so, lots of people find that very, very helpful. What does it have to do with the love and peace of the Holy Spirit in my mind? Because I don't have to put it there. It's already there. And again, I can go back to that anytime by looking at my ego without judging it. That's the formula. The course formula is you look at the error without judgment. You must look at the error in order to choose against it. So you must look at it with non-judgment. And so it's very important that you welcome whatever's going on in your mind, that you allow it, that it's permitted, and that you're non-judgmentally aware of it. And instantly you are the solution. Jesus says the ego is the question and the Holy Spirit is the answer. Whatever madness is going on in your head, the Holy Spirit is the answer. Now, what that means is for you to know yourself as the Holy Spirit, the one mind that we all share, this felt sense of beingness where there is always love and joy and peace. And so, what does it have to do with the love and peace in my right mind? What does it have to do with the one who looks and isn't what's looked at? So I am frightened, but what does that have to do with I? The I am that's always shining in our mind. Thanks a million for that, Teresa. What do we do next, Eli?
It will be Lisa's turn. You go ahead, Lisa.
Lisa, your time has come.
Hi, good afternoon, Keith.
Good afternoon.
I've heard you use the word intuition many times, and yet intuition has never been mentioned once in A Course in Miracles. So And I personally have used intuition to better understand the metaphysics of the Course. And I think it's a very valuable tool. Can you tell me how you use intuition in studying A Course in Miracles? Thank you.
I mean, the word the Course uses is guidance, but it's saying the same thing.
Okay.
And so, if you like, intuition or guidance is the process by which you come to a decision, not based on past learnings. So ordinarily, when there's a problem and I'm in ego, then what I'm doing is I'm calculating, I'm assessing, and I'm going, what worked in the past and what worked, what hasn't worked in the past, and what was it that person told me about this situation? And maybe if I do this, then this, maybe if I do that, then that. So that would be the kind of the analysis of the ego. And intuition is something different. So when I return back to the Holy Spirit in the sense that all is well always in the one mind that we are, then now right-minded action can just kind of flow through me, and it will just tend to be the most helpful, loving thing, effective thing to do in the situation for everyone concerned. And I don't have any personal investment in it. I'm not doing this in order to create my happiness or to establish my peace. My return to the Holy Spirit has done that, and now whatever this deciding is simply an extension of the peace that's in my mind. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I would say that that's what intuition is. It's again that's kind of where Jesus is bringing us in the Course, is to a situation where we don't dig into past learnings as a response to the present moment, but rather allow love. And again, love is when the sense of self and other dissolves. There's just the one self that we are. And then in that, love can take shape around the needs of the situation. And so again, you could have like 10 of the same type of situation happen 10 times in a row, but your response to it might be completely different on every single time. You wouldn't apply the learnings on day 1 to the same situation on day 10, because there's different people involved and different dynamics involved and different situations involved. So it's just going to that place of peace in our mind, and then seeing that as the same peace in the other person, and then the love takes shape around the idiosyncratic or specific needs of the situation. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think we have to come from the right mind of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Yep.
And my experience has been, it's almost like a third person outside of myself, watching myself interact with others, knowing that it isn't a physical body, it isn't the ego, but it's higher than that.
Yeah,
it's higher up the ladder. It's coming from a higher source, from the Holy Spirit.
Yes, and the Holy Spirit is the one mind we all really are or share.
Yes.
Yes, and so again, when we take our seat in the Holy Spirit, well, I mean, it's the same Holy Spirit that's in everyone. Hence the ability for love to take shape around the needs of the moment, and it just happened to be the most helpful, loving, effective thing to do in the situation for everyone concerned.
And I have to remind myself that when I am just the observer, I have to remind myself that it's one mind, one mm-hmm. ego, one mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Absolutely.
very helpful. Thank you for answering my question, Keith.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a million, Lisa. What will we do next, Eli?
Okay, in the chat from Rachel, we have, is inner child wound or trauma a dream in psychological form?
See, if you want to identify as the person, Then what you do is you go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counselor, and you deal with the years where you were a child and stuff happened and it hasn't been sorted, and you want to like heal your inner child. However, you, awareness, have never been any other age except now. You, awareness, have never been the body. You, awareness, can't suffer. This shared mind that we are in the Holy Spirit doesn't suffer. And so instead, with A Course in Miracles, we don't go in and play Sherlock Holmes and try to work out things that happened in an imaginary past, but instead we join the Holy Spirit and we feel the peace that we are, the wholeness that we are, and we allow whatever feelings are coming up in the present moment, and we identify as this wholeness that looks, that's allowing, that's welcoming the feelings, and they're healed. So A Course in Miracles, it isn't about going in there and being Sherlock Holmes in a past that's not real. It's about coming back to what you are in the Holy Spirit, which doesn't have a past. There's just now. It's always now. And then, you know, you come back here by allowing and welcoming what the ego is doing, and you feel what you are as what welcomes. And guilt and upset is undone. I could go running into the Course to find a quote, but I'm going to resist. I hope that makes sense. Okay, where else should we go, Eli?
Okay, we have 3 more in the chat, and if you want to draw a line under that.
All right.
Yeah, so that would be Kristen would be the last one in the chat. So here we go. This is Susan. Keith, how do you maintain this train of thought and think this way all the time? What technique do you use?
If you set yourself a goal that you're going to be with the Holy Spirit all the time, that you're going to be identified as this, our shared identity in the Holy Spirit, this felt sense of being all the time, that's a recipe for feeling like the massive Course in Miracles failure, and for beating yourself around the head with the Course 24 hours a day for being so crap at it, because nobody's going to do that. I can't do that. And that's not your goal. That's not your goal. The goal here is that you become really, really sensitive to when suffering arises, because that means you're insane. It means you've jumped into the stories and you think you're an ego, a self made out of stories. And instead, you use the miracle to go back to what you are here now in this moment in the Holy Spirit. And then whatever upset is coming up gets undone. And so it's not about staying here. You know, again, Jesus used the words miracles. So, you know, the miracle is where you return back to the Holy Spirit. You identify, you, the decision maker, identify with the Holy Spirit instead of as an ego, a self that doesn't exist, for the upset to get undone. And then, you know, the miracle, you know, that comes to an end, then you'll go back to being an ego. And when the suffering arises, you use the miracle to go back to being what is here now in this moment in the Holy Spirit. And the upset is undone. And so that's our process, is to notice when suffering arises, because suffering only arises on behalf of a non-existent separate self.
Okay, you have to sit.
Because awareness can't suffer. So suffering only arises on behalf of a non-existent separate self. And so if I feel like I'm suffering, if I feel like my reputation has been damaged, if I feel like I might die or I might be sick, that just means I think I'm a body. I think I'm the figure in the dream. I'm not knowing myself as the screen. So don't make your goal that you have to stay the quiet center a stately calm all the time. You're not going to do that. The unresolved guilt in your mind is going to make you fearful of staying in the light, and you're going to jump into stories and clothe yourself in stories and become this non-existent separate self. You're going to do that. And so it's not about how many times you fall down. It's about how many times you get back up again, that you come back out of the story to the Holy Spirit. So it's much more important then that you simply become sensitive to any kind of suffering, whether it's impatience or anxiety or fear or worry or judgment or guilt or shame or regret. Whatever comes up, that's just coming up on behalf of a non-existent separate self. It's coming up on behalf of a story, and you're not a story. And so again, when suffering arises, you look on the error without judgment, you welcome it, you allow it, and in that you again know yourself as what's allowing and welcoming that which isn't a story. And that's your return to the holy instant. And now darkness will collapse. It was only ever there because you were identified with an illusion of yourself. And so that's the way to see this. Don't set a goal that you'll be here all the time. Set a goal that you notice when suffering arises, because that means you're identified as an illusion of yourself and you need to return to the holy instant. Anything else, Eli?
Yes, this is from Colleen Erickson. Here, when my mom suddenly passed in the dream, I felt her come to me and guide me that she was still here. Similar to Helen channeling the Course, I would describe. I never explored what happens after the death of the body, though I had been involved in non-duality. Can you speak about consciousness and those who passed, who really never had a body, etc., yet who they were that appeared here seems to still be available in the field of exchanging with us? Mediums are coming out and speaking to spirits in consciousness to verify them and identify them. Example, Matt Fraser.
So, I mean, I think it's interesting in A Course in Miracles that Jesus never speaks about a spirit world, and refuses to take a position on the area of reincarnation. And for that reason, you're going to have all course students and all course teachers taking a different position on this. The point Jesus makes is how could there be other lifetimes when even this one is an illusion? That's the point he makes. You know, who is the you who are living in this world? Spirit is immortal, and immortality is a constant state. That's one quote I can think of. Another one is Jesus says, how can you find joy in a joyless place except by realizing you're not there? So you're not the dream character. You're not the dream character now, and you haven't been any other dream characters either. And, you know, the truth is that God is one Son. And so really we could think about this whole, now again, lots of people will argue with me on this one because Jesus doesn't take a position on it and whatever, but he does say God has but one Son. And so really what you have is a situation where you, consciousness, made a world, you know, wrote the script, made the world, and now you, one consciousness, God's one apparently separated Son, are experiencing the dream that you wrote from the perspective of all of the dream characters in your dream. So God is just one Son. Now, you know, within the dream that wrong-minded consciousness wrote, drunk on the ego pod system, within that dream, is there a spirit world? Is there reincarnation? Maybe, but it's not real because this isn't real either. That's why Jesus says they watch the dream figures come and go, shift and change, suffer and die, and they're not deceived by what they see. Why are they not deceived? Because God's Son is not a dream figure. You know, the one consciousness is viewing itself and its own activity from the point of view of all the dream figures. There's just one of us here. And so for me personally, I don't find it helpful to think about either a spirit world or to think about reincarnation, because if it's a thing, it's still only part of the dream. And so really, I think our focus as Course in Miracles students, because again, this idea about a spirit world and this idea about reincarnation, it is in service to a separate self that wants to be immortal. Let's face it. You know, the only purpose those beliefs would serve would be for me as a separate self to be reassured that I'm not going to die. Well, the good news is you're not going to die because you weren't born, but you're not a dream figure. You are the author of the dream, viewing your script from the perspective of all the characters you wrote. And the characters aren't real. So again, you're going to get a different answer to that from every course student and every course teacher. But for me, the goal of A Course in Miracles is the undoing of separateness. It's the knowing of unity. It's the joining with our brothers. It's the undoing of the belief in separateness. It's the awakening from the dream of a separate identity. To the one self that we are in the Holy Spirit. And so again, that's just for me, it's not a helpful thing. But you know, could a dream world, could a dream spirit world be a thing, just like this dream world is an apparent thing? Yes, in the dream it can be. But I for me, that's not helpful. But I think it can be a comforting thing at certain stages and certain rungs on the ladder. Anyway, hope that makes sense. Anything else, Eli?
Yes, we have one more in the chat. This is from Kristen. It's a little bit difficult to read, but I'll do the best I can. When I say I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that, because if past, afraid.
Eli, I adjusted it, so it might be a little more clear if you read the second one. Because
why don't you go ahead?
Kirsten,
yeah. Kirsten,
just say it
go
out
ahead
loud.
with your question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Just that I'm just trying to feel into the fear, and I'm just not clear if it's just I'm afraid of God, and I'm not afraid of this and that, whatever the this and that is.
Okay, well, what way is the fear manifesting for you at the moment, Kirsten?
Well, it's like I think I'm afraid of God, and so then I make a story about the future.
Okay, but I mean, that sounds like
the future.
Okay, but that sounds like a link you're making based on something you've read. Tell me about your actual experience.
Well, like because of this, so that actual experience, I project into the future. So I'm looking at my son and I'm afraid. The felt sense, like I get this feeling of being afraid that this is going to happen, afraid of that's going to happen.
Okay, so you're just afraid. You have catastrophic expectation.
Sounds right. Is that what? Did you say catastrophic expectation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, that's just anxiety, isn't it? So basically, you're not afraid of anything in particular. You're afraid of everything.
I'll never this. I'll never that. You know, like this, like expectation that for the things that he wants. You know, he wants all the things of the world that are going to make him happy.
Keith, Jenny Jones is not muted, and I'm not co-host, so I can't mute her, and
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
where you're
Jenny,
getting
can
some
you?
interference there.
Okay, thanks a million. Let me. Not that we'll probably need it now, but make you co-host again. And Jenny, if you're listening, can you mute yourself? And so, Kirsten, what you're saying is
Yeah.
you're afraid that your son won't get things that make him happy.
Right. I buy in to that whole drama. Like that he'll be lonely. He'll just continue to be lonely. And it's all the things that are happening in the world that perpetuate the loneliness. And then I look at this and I feel the fear that it'll be like this forever. That's future.
Yeah. So what you've done is you have attacked your identity in the Holy Spirit to identify as body, a self made out of stories. And now what we do is we attack our identity in the Holy Spirit again, to see this right mind, this Holy Spirit, as a broken ego. So the only reason you're seeing your son as broken and needy and wanting and doomed is because, well, the only reason you're attacking the wholeness and the fullness of the Christ that he is, the only reason you're doing that is because you first attacked the Christ that you are. So again, I am never upset for the reason I think. You're not upset about your son. You're upset because you're identified as an ego, and now you are projecting an ego onto the Christ that your son is. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Okay, so, so instead of you as a miracle worker denying your son's dreams of himself and seeing the changeless truth of him in the Holy Spirit, which is the same truth of all of us, instead of you doing that, you are not only denying his dreams of himself, but you are imposing your dream of what he is on him, which is needy and wanting and doomed. So again, I'm never upset for the reason I think. You're not upset about your son. You're upset because you're identified as an illusion of yourself and you think your son is that same illusion. Does that make sense?
Can you say the part about that I'm denying my son's dreams of himself?
Mm-hmm. So there's just one mind that we all are in the Holy Spirit. And it's always shining in our mind, this awareness that we are, this beingness that we are in the Holy Spirit, this invulnerability, this invincibility, this peace, this calm, this limitlessness. That is the truth of our identity, always in our right mind. And we all can identify as a right mind. And there's only one right mind, this shared identity in the Holy Spirit. We can identify as that, or we can identify as a separate self made out of stories. If you identify as the self, the one self we all are in the Holy Spirit, you will see that as the truth of your son. You will, whatever he might believe about himself, you will see, you will disagree with that, and you will see the light in him. However, if you're not seeing the light in your son, that is because you've attacked the light in yourself to identify with the darkness, which is this lacking, needing limitation of yourself. You're not in the present moment with the Holy Spirit. You've jumped into a story of what you are. That's not what you are. And now you're seeing your son as a story. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. So that story that we've been talking about, where where there's this body and it has a son and it's constantly worried about everything all the time. in this moment, is that anything other than a story?
Just a story.
It's just a story. And could you welcome it being there?
Yes.
Yeah. Could you give it permission to be there?
Yeah, fully.
Yeah.
It doesn't stand.
And tell me about this one that can welcome the story being there.
Oh, tell you about this one.
Yeah. What's here now in this moment?
No limit, no problem, no restriction. I don't know. Unbound.
Is that your experience? Is that your experience?
Absolutely.
Can you feel? Okay, you have that felt sense of, yeah, you have that felt sense of being. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that story about you?
The story about my son, is it about me?
The story about a body with a son that stresses and worries, is that story about you awareness? This, what you are here now in this moment, in the Holy Spirit.
Is it about me?
Yeah, is that story about you?
Doesn't seem to be, no.
Can you find the one the stories are about?
No.
No, because she doesn't exist. And is the story about your son?
No.
No. There's just stories.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anywhere that you, this limitless awareness that you are, is there anywhere that you end and I begin?
Nowhere.
No. And is there anything to me other than your awareness of me?
No.
No. There's stories about what a body might have done in the past or might do in the future. There could be assumptions about what's going on in the mind, but none of that's here now in this moment. In this moment, there is nothing to me other than the awareness that you are.
Correct.
Your felt sense of being is my felt sense of being. And is there anywhere where you end? Is there anywhere where you end and your son begins?
No.
And is there anything to your son other than your awareness of him?
No.
It's just stories. But he's not a story, and you're not a story. And stories have no power over what we are in the Holy Spirit in this moment. The world has no power over it. The body has no power over it. And the ego has no power over it. Does it?
No.
No. So again, the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself. All is well. The reason that's all the miracle worker does is because once you know that's the truth of you, that you're the screen and not one of the movie characters on it, you know everyone is the screen and all is well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So again, you don't have to stop. You don't have to do anything with what your wrong mind is doing, except to look at it without judgment, to feel what you are, and to know that's the truth of the whole world. But your wrong mind is going to keep coming up with all this nonsense. And all you do is you return to what you are by looking at the ego without judging it and knowing yourself as what looks and not what's looked at. And when you know what you are, you know what everyone is. God's one holy, innocent, invulnerable, birthless, deathless son. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Do you get a felt sense of that?
fully. I guess
Brilliant.
my question and is like, it's a confusion about what I'm denying. Am I allowed to deny all the beliefs? I mean, I just allow them, and in allowing them, they just don't stand. So it's not even a matter of I this, I that, about like, am I allowed to deny this? It's just in allowing, just like what you just said.
Yeah, they
It's
just
just
dissolve in the
allowing
allowing.
them.
Yeah,
They just don't
yeah,
stand.
if you try and fight them, you will give them a reality they don't
Right.
have.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so essential that we look without judgment, without trying to change, without trying to fix, without feeling guilty. It's essential that we look at the error without judgment. So we allow it to be. We don't do anything with it. We forgive it. And it dissolves in the forgiveness. It dissolves in the welcome.
Yes. And that's where I guess this last thing that's confusing to me is that in this allowing practice, the item dissolves so quickly. It's like I can't look at. And that's really my question. Then I feel like where I get tripped up is I think that I am then denying the thing that's disappearing. I can't look. It won't let me look at it because it goes away.
It disappears.
And
yeah,
I'm just,
because
over
the minute,
and over and over.
Because it's only held in place by your resistance to it.
Yeah,
and so
I mean, it's like
think of
it's
it
not
this
even
way.
the second. It's a millisecond that I look.
No, I get that.
It's not
Yes,
even
no,
the
it's the same.
second.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I think it will be fair to say, though, Kristen, that that's not 100% of the time. That will be true
No.
99% of the time. But
Well,
sometimes it's a doozy.
Yeah, doozy.
And
doozy.
sometimes it's going to require a looking, which could be, 10 minutes or an hour, or that you may have to keep returning to all during the day. So yeah, 99% of the times, the upset will dissolve, but you're still going to have enough times where that's not going to happen instantly. So don't feel upset that it's dissolved. You haven't looked away from it. You've looked squarely at it and it dissolved. That's the undoing of your guilt. That's the undoing of your fear. There's nothing wrong with that. And most of the time it is really quick like that. But other stuff that seems deeper or that there's more investment in, you're still going to have to allow it and welcome it to be there. And it could be that that's going to take longer, and that's okay too.
Yeah. And I'm just, as you talked me through just this last tiny bit right there, I'm reminded that in the instant dissolving, then a fear comes in that I'm overlooking, and then I'm just right back at then, and I open to that itself. Then I open to that. It's like in the instant, because the thing that I'm looking at dissolved, there's a fear that swoops in. And then the words are, you're denying,
so could you welcome that?
Yeah. That's
could you just
I needed that reminder again, both reminders. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So you just welcome that. It's just ego coming in the back door, and can you welcome that?
Yeah.
Just
all
keep welcoming absolutely everything. Allow all the darkness of separateness and ego, allow all of that to come up. Once you know what you are in the present moment in the Holy Spirit, this formlessness, this limitlessness, this peace, once you know that, you have now popped the cork on every fear, unresolved regret, worry, anxiety that's in there. It's now all going to come up to be undone in the light that you are in the Holy Spirit. That's the process. So that's not failure. Your only job is to allow, welcome, and forgive everything that's coming up in your mind. And in that, you'll feel what you are as the Holy Spirit, and all darkness will dissolve. And that's your job. Do that all the way to the real world. So our job is not to be sitting in peace all day. Time enough for that in the real world. This is work time. This is every unresolved self-hatred, regret, upset, fear, story, limitation, every single thing that's buried there, all of that now has to come up and be undone in the light that you are in the Holy Spirit. Bring it on. And all you have to do is not resist it. All you have to do is not fear it and not call it guilty and not call it bad and not call yourself a fit. That's all you have to do. You have to allow it to be there. You have to welcome it being there. You have to forgive the fact that it's there. And in that, you know the identity you are in the Holy Spirit, and it dissolves. And that's it. Wash, rinse, repeat all the way to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Kristen. And thanks to everyone for your attention today. I hope it's been some way helpful. We shall all catch up in the group during the week, and we will do it all again next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Kate.
you.
Love you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.